In February every year, the antique store / restaurant Dutchman Essenhaus has a massive train show for just one day. There are layouts, vendors, and of course models available to purchase. I had gone to both the 2023 and 2024 Essenhaus train shows, and on February 8th, 2025, I of course headed out for the third train show I would be attending. The first building we headed into was the bakery, which was completely normal downstairs, still serving customers at the restaurant, but the train show registration, as well as the beginning parts of said train show, were up the stairs. The first vendor we took a look at was selling mostly O-gauge rolling stock, including this Merry Christmas boxcar, but they did have some locomotives, including this ballast tamper, this weird little Lionel 242 diesel switcher, a set of Pennsylvania Railroad green F units, the same Texas Special 1055 FA that was there last time, and this massive shelf containing a bunch of rolling stock. I didn't really care about rolling stock, so I moved on to the next vendor. They had a vintage Lionel Berkshire, a American Flyer Erie, I think that's a 10-wheeler, a CSX Stealth Scheme Maintenance of Way car. Yeah, that's not accurate. Hey look, it's the Bachman train set I ordered off Amazon and it never arrived and I spent $240 on it. A Southern-inspired American Flyer Rocket PA. A Santa Fe War Bonnet PA number 360. A American Flyer Lines Pennsylvania Railroad K4. An American Flyer Lines The Royal Blue B&O P7. Moving on from the O-scale vendors, we take a look at some HO ones. First up is CP SD70 ACU number 7023, which was actually packed away in a box, but I asked the guy if I could pull it out for this photo, and he said yes. Next was an absolutely disgusting Microsoft Word-looking Marines tribute locomotive. 2 New Haven F units actually in the proper McGinnis scheme. And now the first of the operating layouts, which was in the center of this room. This layout had 3 trains, one powered by a Baltimore and Ohio FA with Polar Express coaches, one powered by 2 very inaccurate Amtrak Phase 1 FAs, and a little tram in the middle. Back to vendors, we see a Southern Pacific dummy GP38-2, a L&N Kentucky Bourbon Trail grain hopper, 2 Missouri Pacific GP15-1s, a O-scale GS4 Southern Pacific Daylight, an HO-scale Chesapeake and Ohio F unit, an HO Santa Fe War Bonnet Alco. Disgusting. A CN early 60s scheme GP38. A O-scale Wabash F unit with a B unit off camera. A Central Railroad of New Jersey switcher. A Union Pacific SD40-2. Up and down the mountain, everything is fine, 'cause that rootin' tootin'. 2 vintage Lionel Santa Fe F units. A MKT Mikado. 2
Chicago and Northwestern Railroad Company
C40-8s. An Amtrak Phase 3 FA. Are you kidding me? A Sioux Candy Apple Red Dummy SD40-2, 2 Menards branded Union Pacific ore gondolas, a unpainted, well, kind of, it has PRR logos, GG1, a PRR S2 turbine, several E units, including 2 Milwaukee Road ones in Union Pacific paint, a Central Vermont Alco High Hood RS11, a Denver and Rio Grande Western 280 Consolidation number 513, an RF&P boxcar, which I actually ended up buying, a Santa Fe Doodlebug, which I was really considering buying, but I have so much Santa Fe stuff already, I decided against it. A cursed pink Lionel Hudson. I'm pretty sure this was from the Girls Train set that came out in like the 60s post-war years. It looks incredibly cursed. And speaking of cursed, here we have a Pennsylvania Railroad EP5. There's also those 2 Ontario Northland SD9 rebuilds that I saw last time. This absolutely massive HO scale DT&I 86-foot boxcar, a
Chicago and Northwestern Railroad Company
GP9, a CP Multimark Scheme F unit in HO scale. And speaking of that scale, on the HO scale test track, a model of nickel plate 765 was being tested.
Yeah, I'm not speeding it up. This is doing this. It's charging itself up right now. Yeah.
A Santa Fe F45 in glorious war bonnet was also out. And nearby was this Norfolk and Western switcher number 2230. Sadly, wrapped up in a box was the CSX Butthead MP15. And also out on display was that same 4-pack of Alco PAs I saw last time. And then there was also this vendor with lots of steam locomotives, including this Pennsy Santa Fe, another Santa Fe, but without the tender, so I do not know what railroad it's from. This very impressive custom-made 2664. And beside that was this brass unpainted SDP-40F. And this large vendor with lots of diesels, including some New York Susquehanna and Western Power. Of course, I had to take an exclusive photo of the Santa Fe SE75M in the back. Here we see a Regional Transportation Authority RTA F40. An Atlantic Coastline switcher. No, I still don't know how to tell the EMD switchers apart. A Burlington Northern F unit. A very strange Southern Pacific CAF switcher, a Union Pacific CAF next to an Alco S2, which would supposedly be paired with it in real life, a BNO/Chassis System SD40-2, a Celebrating 50 Years of Innovation MRC AC44, a Southern Pacific Black Widow F unit and Great Northern Chopnose Alco, a Santa Fe Kodachrome Dummy SD40-2, a Milwaukee Road Baldwin? Question mark? Another Milwaukee Road engine, this time an E unit in the Union Pacific Yellow, a L&N/Family Lines SD40-2 number 8104 in HO, and most of the vendors in here were HO actually. Here's a KD RS3, I'm not going to make the Chicago Northwestern joke again, -9. A Norfolk Southern with the Southern Railway Reporting Marks OLS unit. A Santa Fe -9 War Bonnet number 690. A Fiction Livery BN whatever this locomotive model is. An HO scale Norfolk and Western 611. An Illinois Central SD40-2 Death Star. A Montana Rail Link Switcher Butthead number 51. The Sioux Line Bicentennial Unit number 1776. An extremely inaccurate Metra F59 PHI number 90, which I've actually seen in real life. I found something epic. Look. It's Sioux/Illini Terminal 2064. I have stood on the footplate of this unit in real life. That is so cool. And as past me said, here's Sioux 2064, which I've actually been on in real life. And directly above it was a DTNI Jeep. There was also this custom build BNSF SD40-2B in H1, A shocking find, a TFM SD70 Mac. However, this area wasn't immune to N-scale. There was also these SD9s. And going back to HO for a second, here's a Union Pacific switcher. This guy didn't buy a big enough tables to put all of his N-scale stuff out, and so as a result, a lot of it was in boxes. Me being the N-scale guy, he let me dig through them to find some models that I might want. And oh boy, did I find some models that I might want. I didn't decide to get this H2 Gevo, but I did pull it out for a photo. However, I found this, a BC Rail C4-M, and I was like, oh yeah. And then I found this, a CSX YN2 Mac. Oh boy. There was also this Union Pacific SD90 Mac, I guess, which again, I just took out for the photo. Popping over to the test track, we decided to give the two locomotives I really wanted to buy a test run, starting off with the CSX SD70 Mac, who turned out to be a pretty smooth runner. The BC C4-M, which is actually a Rapido model, was similarly good performing. We decided to purchase both models after running them on the test track. Following our purchases, we came across a Burlington Northern SD70 Executive Mac and a Ferromex AC44. Cool to see some Mexican railroad representation. And speaking of that, here was this KCS NAFTA Grey Ghost Special Unit. A BNSF 25th Anniversary Unit. Here's a Montana Rail Link SD38, I think? Norfolk and Western's Bicentennial Unit in SD45, numbered 1776. An absolutely gorgeous Gulf Mobile and Ohio Gevo. A Farm Rail Chop Nose GP9. Was quite shocked to see this with how obscure Farm Rail is. A Durham and Southern Bicentennial Unit number 2000. An HO scale Erie Triplex. Didn't know these existed. A CN Blue Devil. It isn't 2466, but it's still cool. Two Southern Green locomotives, an RS3 and a E unit. A EJ&E SD38-2 with sound. A DT&I Bicentennial Unit number 1776 again. An EMD/Oakway SD60 in the demonstrator livery. Another Sioux Line Bandit, this time an MP15DC. And after that, we left the upstairs and headed downstairs to eat lunch at the bakery. And after that, we headed off to the second train-related building, the Corn Crib. As we came in, we noticed that the path to the train show was, once again, tracks. Very funny. Inside, the only major model railroad-related thing was this HO scale railway, which had been at both the previous two Essenhaus shows. However, this time, they had mixed it up. Not in the motive power, it was the same chassis system Jeep hauling a freight and Amtrak hauling a passenger train. However, this time, they let the visitors drive the train, and I took the opportunity to drive the Amtrak train for a brief part, so you can see it do some cool stopping and starting in some of these shots.
I think the orange was falling off.
Yeah. Grab total.
I'm gonna go over the cart. Look at that car there.
That's you, Colton. Here you come. That's you. You're the silver one.
The only other train-related thing inside the Corn Crib were these cursed pullback diecast models, starting with a North Southern War Bonnet SD45, a NY to EL 1872 CSX YN2, and a bunch of other models I didn't care enough to photograph. There was also some die-cast airplanes for some reason. While we were walking to the next and final building, the inn, we saw this definitely not a trolley. Here's a shot of the door we walked into to get into the inn. This was the biggest and most N-scale heavy area. However, there was some O-scale, starting with this Burlington Route Jeep, a Santa Fe FA in this cursed, very, very inaccurate livery, a Virginian E33 in the very nice Virginia Electric scheme, and sadly the area where I had bought that Autorack carrier last time had been taken over by Legos. Speaking of them, the Lego railway that was there the last 2 years was also still here in the middle of the room. As they had last year, they had different power this year, with an Amtrak train and the Lego Maersk train set.
Fix things and after I haul it around, it gets shipped.
Finishing up the O-scale vendors in this area, we have this absolutely cursed Warbonnet Trainmaster, a Pennsylvania Railroad B something 060 switcher, a Burlington Northern late cab SD60M, and now, decreasing scale, we see an N-scale Norfolk Southern -8. And going back up, we see an HO scale PRR GP30. Then we saw an N-scale Erie Lackawanna PA. Remember this. Then an N-scale Centennial, and I guarantee you I absolutely would have bought this thing if it wasn't too big for the DLM. Anyways, there was a lot of N-scale vendors in this area, as you can see. As you can still see. This one had a lot of SD40-2s. We also found a BC Rail tricolor Alco. Looks very nice, but not as good as the C40-8M. Here's UB1999 Rio Grande! A Rock Island Fairbanks Moore something, one of the early Lowy-inspired designs. A Monon Alco in the gold and black. Remember this also. A The Joke Is Dead Now SD70 Ace, a UP Heritage unit. A SP Cab Forwards, sadly wrapped up in a bubble blister. A silver Milwaukee Road Caboose. Okay. A Chicago and Northwestern Bay Window Caboose. This Hornby, German I think, 040. Loads of HO scale locomotives, mostly of Erie Lackawanna origin. A absolutely disgusting looking Milwaukee Road F59 with a Union Pacific paint. Another Lionel S2 turbine. A giant Amtrak poster that was just chilling here in the corner. A It's Over Guys SD45. A Duluth, Winnipeg, and Pacific GP9. A Seaboard Airline GP9, an N-scale BNSF H1 Jeep with no number, my sleep paralysis demon, aka Blank Warbonnet, this Primer, I think, Jeep, it looks very odd, this Boston and Maine BL2, I still can't decide if I like the BL2 or not, this Delaware and Hudson RS11, a Milwaukee Road SD45 and MWL, whatever that is, a Pennsylvania Railroad GP30 in N-scale, two more Pennsy locomotives, both E8s, a Santa Fe switcher, a Boston and Maine FA, 2 vintage sets of Lionel F units with a Northern sandwiched in between, 2 more vintage Lionel engines, a Berkshire, and the recording box is covering up the wheels. Guys, I think they forgot to paint the locomotive. Some Thomas DVDs, most of these I own. Actually, I think I own all of them. Hey, remember when I said that Erie Lackawanna, PA was going to be important? Well, it was, because I decided to buy it. Well, not that exact one, a slightly cheaper one, which somehow ran better than it. It's impressive. Or at least it was until my dad derailed it. After buying it, we headed over to some of the other N-scale vendors where we saw this PC Bud Metroliner, another one of those exact same Santa Fe Doodlebugs, a rather familiar looking Amtrak RS3, a Japanese Electric and Amtrak Phase 2, why do I like this, a bunch of Thomas the Tank Engine merchandise in a big box, another Erie Lackawanna, PA, except this one is in G-scale. And hey look, it's that Monon Alco I told you was going to be important. I decided I wanted to buy it, or at least I did decide that until it turned out you had to put the handrails on yourself and it also wasn't very reliable. Just watch this clip. Dead. The Monon was off the table. I took a brief look at this UP Snoot Nose, but decided also not to buy it. Since the train show was coming to an end, I decided to take a look at some of the operating layouts in the other room and then come back here if I wanted something that was here. So, walking there, I saw some steam engines, a Penn Central Jade Green F unit, a cursed Santa Fe Fairbanks Morse Erie Master, before eventually finding the layouts in the other room. The same massive N-scale layout that was there at the last 2 train shows was here, and they had some locomotives on display, including some Southern High Hoods, a Conrail -8, and a BNSF H2-9. Actually, on the layout was that same Norfolk Southern -9 and -8 I'd seen on this layout last year. And as far as power on the actual mobile trains, they'd upgraded from standard freights to, oh, I don't know, the entire American Freedom Train. And there was also a Tuscan Red GG1 pulling a modern intermodal with a Metro Coach and American Freedom Train boxcar at the end. The Freedom Train was having some technical difficulties, so they had to stop it. While they were fixing that, I headed over to the other layout in this room, which was a Lego railway. Sadly, this was so close to the end of the train show that the layout was already being taken apart by the time I started filming it, leaving this GP9 as a sole operating locomotive on the layout. Back on the N-scale layout, they had thrown the Amtrak Veterans Unit 42 onto the Freedom Train in an attempt to cure some of its problems. We cut to GG1 again while waiting for 42 to move. And eventually it did, and I got this pretty bad, I guess, shot of it, but it's a model train, I don't really care. We then took a look at the final vendors we hadn't visited yet with this incredibly inaccurate Fairbanks Morse Trainmaster in PRR livery, a Veggie Tales train set, I don't even want to think about that, a Santa Fe Blue Bonnet F unit and a BN GP30, as well as some random shells that were sitting without chassis. There was also a lot of vintage, I think that's Hornby clockwork locomotives, and a New York Central inspired Atlantic in Pennsylvania colors. I couldn't find anything else to buy at the vendors over by that area, so I decided to head back over to the guy who sold me the BCOL-8 and the CSX Mac, and he had, the Great Pumpkin. We tested it out, and yeah, it performed very well, so we bought it too. He also had a CSX genset, which he let me take out for photos. I love gensets. And the final photo I took at Essenhaus was of this BNSF H2 GP60M. After Essenhaus, we made our way home, and I ran in all the models on my layout. Here's some clips of them operating. First, we have the BC Rail C40-8M. Then we have the BNSF Great Pumpkin SD60M. And finally, the Erie Lackawanna PA. This is a very fun trip to Essenhaus. Sorry if I sounded a little dead while recording this, I think I'm sick with something. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and make sure to come back for another one just like it. Catch 'em while you can.